Coming up tonight, Hurricane Isaias makes its way through the Bahamas. Plus, health officials express concern over rising COVID-19 numbers, and a family dispute turns deadly.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News, and thanks for joining us. I'm Jared Higgs. Topping news tonight, meteorologists keeping a close eye on Hurricane Isaias as heavy rains and strong winds continue to spread across the central Bahamas. For the latest, we go to meteorologist Greg Thompson. Good night, Greg.
So let's now go to the meteorological department where, of course, we have an update from meteorologist Greg Thompson. Greg, thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Marcellus, and good evening, everybody.
Greg, I guess the first question people want to know is what's happening with Hurricane Isaias at this point in time?
Well, Isaias is continuing to strengthen slightly. Its forward speed has slowed down by about one knot, but it's expected to continue that slow decrease in forward speed. The latest advisory on Isaias issued at 6 p.m. this evening, hurricane warnings, has been discontinued for the Southeast Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos Islands, and the all clear is now issued for Inagua, Maguana, Acklins and Crooked Island, Ragged Island, Chain, Long Key, Samana Key, as well as the Turks and Caicos Islands. Hurricane warning remains in effect for the remainder of the Bahamas. At 6 p.m., the center of Isaias was located near latitude 22.6 degrees north, longitude 75.7 degrees west, or about 50 miles southwest of Clownstown, Long Island, 60 miles to the south of Georgetown, Exuma, 145 miles southeast of Congo Town, South Andros, and 195 miles southeast of New Providence. Isaias is moving towards the northwest near 50 miles per hour, and a general northwestward to north motion is expected with some decrease in its forward speed during the next day or so, followed by a turn towards the north-northwest on Sunday. On the forecast track, the center of Isaias will continue to move across the central Bahamas tonight and into the northwest Bahamas Saturday, and near the east coast of Florida Peninsula by Saturday afternoon through Sunday. The center of Isaias is forecast to move over North Andros early Saturday morning, so you guys in Andros should be really prepared for this, while impacting New Providence with strong tropical storm force winds and some severe thunderstorms. Maximum sustained winds remain near 75 miles per hour with higher gusts. Strengthening is expected later tonight as the system continues to push towards the northwest and early on Saturday. Isaias is to remain a hurricane as it moves through the Bahamas over the next few days. Hurricane force winds extend outwards up to 35 miles from the center, and tropical storm force winds extend outwards up to 175 miles from the center. Storm surge of 3 to 5 feet above normal tide levels can be expected along coastal areas throughout the Bahamas. So you guys living near the coastal lines, you can expect some storm surge along with that. Strong tropical storm force winds are now being experienced in Long Island and Exuma and will begin to subside about 10 p.m. tonight. Andros and New Providence will experience tropical storm force winds to hurricane force winds on Saturday morning. Localized flooding is expected with the system as it continues to push towards the north and west. The Turks and Caicos Islands, as Isaias is forecast to produce some rainfall amounts of up to 4 to 8 inches. Residents in the northwest and central Bahamas should rush to complete all preparations to mitigate damages against flooding and to secure all loose items around your property. Residents are strongly advised to remain indoors while experiencing hurricane and tropical storm force winds, and tornadic activity is possible as these severe thunderstorms continue to push towards the area associated with Isaias. Small craft operators, we are asking you to remain in port, as well as in the Turks and Caicos Islands and the entire island chain. And dangerous swells expected with the system, and that is the reason why we are requiring you or requesting you or urging you to remain in port. Residents are also urged to follow the advice that we are continuing to issue every 3 hours. So the next news item for this system will be issued later on tonight. Marcellus?
Very quickly, Greg, you mentioned the storm right now is it at a minimum? Is it a Category 1? You said there is expected to be some strengthening. How much strengthening should we expect? And you talk about heavy rainfall. Here in New Providence in particular, where there are some areas that are prone to flooding, is that something they should be concerned about?
Yes, well, to get to the first part of your question, of course, the system is continuing to move towards the north and west. The National Hurricane Center and all the models point to some slight strengthening as the system continues to push towards the northwest. It is now a Category 1 storm, and we expect it to strengthen a little further. It could possibly make it to a Category 2 system by the time it gets into the northwest Bahamas. As it relates to the flooding, we are asking residents in areas that are prone to flooding, since we expect 4 to 8 inches of rainfall. If your area is a flood-prone zone, we're asking you to mitigate, do what you need to mitigate against damages. And if necessary, you need to move out of those flood zones to some higher elevations.
All right, Greg, well, thank you so much for giving us the latest information on Hurricane Isaias. Of course, we'll be contacting the meteorological department as this storm progresses through the Bahamas, and I'm sure you guys will be more than able to keep us up to speed on what we can expect as this storm goes through. Thank you so much for joining us, Greg.
Thank you.
And we want to thank you as well for joining us here on RTV for this latest update on Hurricane Isaias. Our coverage of this storm and its impact will continue. Meanwhile, I'm Marcellus Hall for RTV.
The National Emergency Management Agency held a news conference this afternoon. Kyle Joaquin has more.
In Acklands today, torrential rain as Hurricane Isaias made landfall. On San Salvador, the wind and rain didn't let up.
Oh no, Dad!
Meteorologists now expressing doubt Hurricane Isaias will strengthen beyond Category 1 as it makes its way through the Bahamas. New Providence should feel tropical storm force winds by 8 tonight and Category 1 hurricane winds by 4 in the morning, according to Met Office Director Trevor Baston.
And that will be from 4 a.m. on Saturday morning until 12 noon on Saturday. But again, I would like to say that once we have indicated that hurricane force winds are expected, I would like to caution the public to still your preparation for Category 1, 2, 3, 4 be the same.
As for the northern Bahamas, where islands like Grand Bahama and Abaco are still reeling from Hurricane Dorian last year, Baston said this.
We are looking at early morning, 6 a.m., 7 a.m. for them to be impacted by the tropical storm force winds, and the likelihood of Grand Bahama being, at least the western side of Grand Bahama, being impacted by hurricane force winds. But we're looking at those winds to be around 80 miles an hour or so.
With this threat from a Category 1 hurricane comes the need for evacuations. Shelters on all islands have been opened, and NEMA Director Captain Stephen Russell once again urged those along the coastlines of Grand Bahama and Abaco to evacuate.
For years, we've always been urging persons, once some advisories are made in reference to a storm or system, and we are advised to evacuate in a timely manner. Persons who fail to evacuate in those times mentioned, we always stress to them that we are not going to put our emergency responders in harm's way by trying to rescue you.
But with COVID-19 cases skyrocketing in Grand Bahama and New Providence, officials were asked about managing those who are supposed to be in quarantine at home but need to seek shelter.
We realize that there are persons out there who may be self-isolated or have been advised by their doctors to isolate or to quarantine. And so some of them will be at the shelters. And so we've indicated that at each shelter we will try our best to identify safe zones for those persons. If we can quadrant off a space in the place or identify rooms specific for those persons to be in, then that is what we will do.
Isaias has certainly been making its presence felt throughout the country, especially in Long Island, where one resident sent this video from his porch in Hamilton's. But as eyes are on Isaias, meteorologists are also watching two other systems very closely.
You see, the Department of Meteorology must be concerned with other systems, one midway between us and Africa and one off the coast of Africa.
For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Health officials say the rate of infection for COVID-19 is worrying. This comes as the country recorded another 247 cases this week after recording 187 cases last week.
The statistics confirm that the Bahamas is in a surge.
Health Minister Renward Wells revealed that the total number of cases is now at 574. 467 of those cases are active and 275 of them are in Grand Bahama. Wells says officials are concerned with the rate of infection, adding the spread of the virus is down to social events.
Individuals from Grand Bahama, New Providence, and Bimini all attended a particular funeral, and within a single incubation period, there were increased number of cases on those three islands.
Meanwhile, Wells says the second surge has been traced to individuals from Grand Bahama who traveled from the United States. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Pearl Macmillan revealed that thousands of Bahamians traveled to hotspots during July.
Between the 1st and the 24th of July, 4,246 Bahamians traveled to international destinations, the majority of which were COVID-19 hotspots.
Meanwhile, Dr. Frank Bartlett addressed 3 deaths from COVID-19 in Grand Bahama.
We have a 76-year-old female who's a known hypertensive, and she had some issues with respiratory distress. Second was a 54-year-old female who had a history of obesity. She also had obstructive sleep apnea, and she had what is called ARDS, or acute respiratory syndrome. The third person we would have had was a 77-year-old male who had a history, again, of respiratory complaints on admission, who deteriorated and passed from respiratory failure.
And on top of those deaths, officials are worried because now there are 19 hospitalized cases. Wells urged individuals who have been identified by the surveillance unit not to avoid health officials.
We beg you not to refuse to answer calls, block calls, or purposefully lose contact with surveillance officers, and do not provide untruthful accounts of your activity to our surveillance team.
Health officials dodging questions about whether 3 wards at PMH have been closed due to patients testing positive for COVID-19. The Nassau Guardian reported this week that those wards stopped taking new patients. Well, when pressed on the matter today, hospital administrator Mary Walker wouldn't respond directly.
The Public Hospitals Authority has activated an aggressive reconfiguration of wards across its 3 institutions, the Princess Margaret Hospital, the Rand Memorial Hospital, and the Sandlands Rehabilitation Center. The move comes as the authority has recorded an increased number of persons presenting to hospital and staff testing positive for COVID-19, which has put a significant strain on the resources, including bed capacity. For the purposes of continuing clinical services in the PHA has reconfigured ward utilizations during this time to manage patient admissions subject to their medical needs and agenda.
Despite being asked specifically about the ward closure, Health Minister Renward Wells left it to the hospital administrator, who wouldn't directly confirm ward closures, but did allude to employees and patients getting infected.
The current exposure of employees and patients across our hospitals is being managed subject to international infection prevention control guidelines for infectious outbreaks of this kind and the policies of the PHA.
As Hurricane Isaias nears the capital, streets were flooded with cars and stores were filled with shoppers as many New Providence residents scrambled to get storm essentials. Jillian Gray reports.
There was bumper-to-bumper traffic as residents made last-minute preparations, hitting hardware stores, gas stations, and food stores in preparation for Hurricane Isaias.
The traffic jam on highways and streets extended for miles and in some instances was at a complete standstill. Leroy Albury, who was waiting in line at the grocery store, described the traffic jam as a nuisance.
It's a real nuisance trying to get back and forth to do different things. Because a lot of people panic shop. They don't need certain things, but they in the store. So what I would say, if you don't have to come out, just stay home.
The traffic horrendous, so Once I get to the food store, I get a few items, I locked in for the weekend.
The line for many gas stations extended into the street, creating even more chaos for motorists. Jim Bernard, who stopped to fill up his truck ahead of the storm, said he's also helping friends to secure their boats.
Scrambling around trying to get all my buddies' boats tied up and secured, and pulling out the boats I can and trying to, help out and put up shutters and getting ready.
Down at Premier Importers, COO Daniel Lita said plywood and hurricane supplies have been a hot seller all week long.
It's been basically like hills and valleys. We get spikes for people just getting plywood to board up, as well as other type of hurricane supplies that we sell. All type of building stuff to board up, be safe. And we also have our hardware store out front where batteries and lights and flashlights are flying up the shelves.
Though residents have been preparing, some are not confident that Hurricane Isaias will have much effect on New Providence.
I think it's a light storm, Cat 2, so it'll probably blow over, and Sunday we'll be back on the beach.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Eastern New Providence residents aren't taking the threat of possible flooding lightly. Bertha McDermott has that angle.
As Hurricane Isaias gets closer and closer to the capital, residents in areas that are prone to flooding like Yamacraw and Elizabeth Estate says they're doing whatever is necessary to protect their homes. Forecasters predict that Hurricane Isaias will bring between 4 to 8 inches of rain. Kenria Seminet's home is facing the seaside, and she says while flooding isn't usually an issue, after the severe flooding caused by Hurricane Matthew, she is concerned that this system will have a similar effect.
The only time I really experienced any flooding was with Matthew. And that was the first time I have experienced any flooding where the water came into shore, and I experienced water coming into my home.
Further inland, we met Brenda Gator and her son putting up hurricane shutters.
Matthew, that is very bad. So from Matthew, I was up here like over 30 years, and Matthew, that is the worst. So since then, we were being pretty cautious.
Over in Elizabeth Estates, we met residents at the constituency office retrieving bags of sand. Coordinator Pamela Hart said on Thursday they gave out more than 300 sandbags.
We are doing tree trimming, and we are going in the constituency. We're giving out the tarps. Some persons who requested tarps, we're giving them tarps, and persons who needed the trees to be cut, we are doing that. Some persons we're doing roof repairs too.
However, residents aren't just preparing for heavy rain and strong winds. They're also planning in the event of power outages. Bahamas Power and Light anticipates that as of 8 p.m. this evening, there will be a controlled shutdown of certain high-risk areas in the New Providence grid.
Well, I have a standby generator. I've had that now for the past 16 years. So my only concern is to make sure that my gas is always top up.
We're always out, so we okay. We'll do what we usually do.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Bertha McDermott.
Bahamas Power and Light Company warning of a possible controlled shutdown of certain high-risk areas in New Providence around 8 tonight. BPL said this would be necessary only if Isaias maintains current conditions and New Providence sees sustained winds of 40 miles per hour. Should storm conditions deteriorate, a second control shutdown will be executed targeting flood-prone areas. Once power is cut, officials say it will remain off until it is safe to re-energize. The second round of control shutdowns in New Providence will likely affect customers in the flood-prone areas of Pinewood, Marshall Road, Yamacraw Shores, Winton Highway, Culberts Hill, Nassau East, Papal Track, St. Albans Drive, Bay Street, and Nassau Village, among others. Still to come on Our News, a look at the islands affected by Isaias this morning.
Rev up on the next promotion. Okay. Nice.
Bye. You give up it.
That's 2 out of 3.
Sign up for Rev Trio and opt in to NBA League Pass absolutely free. Visit rev.bs or call 601-8992 for details. Rev, you and us, together.
Some parts of the Bahamas began feeling the effects of Hurricane Isaias this morning. George O'Bain reports.
As residents brace and prepare for hurricane conditions, Deputy Director at the Department of Meteorology, Basil Dean, said the worst of the storm is expected to come in the early morning hours. But a plus, according to Dean, is that the storm is not expected to hang around very long. As Hurricane Isaias made its way through the southern islands, forecasters' predictions of rainy conditions were evident. Winds howled over in Crooked Island as trees bent and swayed. Meanwhile, huge waves crashed against the shoreline in Hamilton's Long Island. Salina Point, Ackland's also feeling the effects of the Category 1 storm as residents drove through the streets, some even brave to walk on the outside. Over in San Salvador, residents recorded the changing weather conditions as winds lifted shingles off a nearby roof.
This is the weather down here in San Salvador. We already have some shingles flying off the roof.
A major component of the storm is the rainy conditions, according to Dean, where some areas could see up to 8 inches of rain.
Rain will be a major factor in this system. They will come in waves in pockets, some of which will be heavy at times, but for the most part, you can anticipate light to moderate rainfall. The accumulative rainfall expected throughout the life cycle of this system is anywhere between 4 and 8 inches.
Residents wasted no time hitting food stores and gas stations to prepare for the storm. However, Dean had this warning for residents.
In terms of the winds, unless your windows are compromised, meaning the glass panes might be cracked, then you would need to button up those windows.
Although the storm is expected to pack its share of rain, Dean said those in areas prone to flooding need not be overly concerned.
I don't think the flooding is going to be that bad because, as I said earlier, the forward movement of the system, 17 miles per hour, that would get it in and out of here in a relatively short period of time. It's only when you have the slow-moving systems that put you under rain conditions for a prolonged period of time lead to the severe flooding.
Reporting for our News, I'm Georgia Bain.
A man was stabbed to death on Lawton Street, Nassau Village last night. Police received reports of an altercation among family members which resulted in the death of one man and 2 others receiving injuries. Berthany McDermott has the details.
An altercation between 3 family members turned deadly last night. Relatives tell us the victim is 53-year-old George Smith, a father of 4. According to Police Press Liaison Officer ASP Otley Peters, police got the call shortly after 8 p.m.
Police received information of a stabbing incident that occurred on Lawton Street, Nassau Village. Officers responded, and on their arrival, the information is that they received an altercation among 3 male relatives that resulted in all of the males receiving injuries to their bodies. One of the males succumbed to the injury that he received, and EMS was called in. On their arrival, they examined the male and pronounced him lifeless on the scene.
The other 2 males were transported to hospital and are said to be in stable condition. The victim's brother, Ednal Smith, said the dispute was between Smith and his 2 nephews over a house. However, he admitted that his brother has had a few run-ins with the law.
I think they attack him something to do with the house. It was a growing problem. But I don't see how my brother getting. My brother just came out of prison. He just came out of prison, 3-4 days ago.
Smith added that his 2 nephews who were involved in the altercation buried their mother about a month ago. He said the loss of his little brother will be a hard one, especially for him.
It's going to be a hard blow. That's going to be a tough blow. It's going to be a big, big blow, especially for me.
Are you too close?
Yeah, we're really close.
Police could not say how many times the man was stabbed. Peters is calling on residents to find more peaceful ways to resolve their conflicts.
If you find yourself in a conflict, that you could take the simple technique of counting from 1 to 10, or pause, think before we act, because our actions have consequences, and in some instances, consequences that are life, destiny determining.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
When Our News comes back from the break, the rush for water and cooking gas. Stay tuned.
Rev up on the next promotion. Okay. Nice.
Bye. You give up it.
Best 2 out of 3.
Sign up for Rev Trio and opt in to NBA League Pass absolutely free. Visit rev.bs or call 601-8992 for details. Rev, you and us, together.
Welcome back. It was a dash for water today as well. Water depots were booked out, so were the roadside water vendors. Anthony Cooper said after months of struggling due to COVID-19, storm preparations have come as a blessing in disguise.
From last night, my phone was ringing off the hook. Like, people want water. They heard a storm coming, so they was like, yeah, they need to be prepared. So I was like, okay, today is a rough day, and so said, so done. Been rough from 7 o'clock this morning.
And as Bahamas Power and Light has already announced plans to begin a controlled shutdown tonight, residents sought to get petroleum gas as well for cooking. Island Gas Financial Controller Anthony Knowles says they've certainly noticed the uptick in business.
Well, it's busy. Like you said, everyone is trying to get, the last minute gas, make sure that their tanks are full. In the event that, we have elongated time of confusion, or people will at least be able to cook.
Still to come, job opportunities for Pinewood residents. Stay tuned.
Rev up on the next promotion. Okay. Nice.
Bye. You give up it.
Best 2 out of 3.
Sign up for Rev Trio and opt in to NBA League Pass absolutely free. Visit rev.bs or call 601-8992 for details. Rev, you and us, together.
Community activist Gerard Darville is partnering with business owners in Pinewood to implement a trade skills initiative. The program seeks to provide up to 50 jobs for residents of Pinewood.
Elvis Wilson, he's the owner of Ocean Blue. We have Mr. Edison Stewart and his representative from the A-Team Construction here with us. And we also have Mr. Kareem Hanchel with Rasta Fencing. What these 3 companies are doing is they are being able to train, employ, and being able to get them out there in terms of managing their skill sets so that we could be able to create jobs and opportunities during this pandemic crisis.
The program focuses on training those in the fencing, construction, or fishing industry. Local businessman Elvis Wilson said he's looking forward to people he's looking for 10 people who are interested in the commercial fishing area. Wilson plans to pay for their training and provide a market for the seafood caught.
I feel it's my duty as a business owner, as a Bahamian, to help to enhance, the persons in our Bahamas. Especially during this pandemic, everybody's laid off, and when you look at fishing, it's the only thing that's really looked like it's thriving to me right now. So this is a great initiative, like I said, to work with Mr. Darville to try to find young men. It could be more than 10. Once they're serious and willing to, partake in this industry, I'm willing to train them.
Thank you for joining us for Our News Tonight. To catch our news on the go, download the Rev Go Play app. On behalf of the entire news team, I'm Jared Higgs. Have a safe weekend, Bahamas.